Guys, happy Super Bowl Sunday. Steve Petersky here with North County Pipeline. Just giving you a quick recap on today's podcast of all that went down this week. A lot went down, so get right into it. First, there's some immigration protests over Donald Trump's immigration and deportation policies. Those were going down in Escondido Vista, San Marcos on Friday, and then on Oceanside as well. Pretty intense stuff on some of them. Others, it was pretty docile. Hundreds to a couple thousand people total showed up to these rallies. And so we'll see if they keep continuing to protest and how some of these things break down. Obviously, a lot of moving parts. Things are going quickly with the new administration. So something to keep an eye out for sure. Also this week, a lot of big development news. We'll start in Oceanside with the Eddie Jones Warehouse project that comes before their planning commission tomorrow. It's a massive logistics hub. We're at Oceanside Municipal Airport. So the proposal is about 500,000 square feet of office and building space, dozens and dozens of semi-truck stalls, parking, terminals. So a lot of residents in those neighborhoods are pretty upset. They don't want it. They want the city to keep hold of its current planning and zoning regulations to allow the bare minimum, which is about 6 to 18, depending on the size and scope. So we'll see how the city goes with that. The residents have been pushing for this for a couple of years now, and there was an economic study done in 2023 that was before the project was scaled down. Shows a pretty significant revenue windfall for the city, about $360,000 in tax revenue, although that may be a little bit less now. Considering the scaled down version of the project. A lot of the concerns are around emissions, truck traffic on the 76 and I-5, whether or not the operations will be going on 24/7. So that's something to keep an eye out on, and we'll see what the recommendation comes down from Planning Commission tomorrow. Just another day in development land in North County, right? And then also, another one that made some waves was the Carlsbad Village development proposal on Carlsbad Village Drive between Jefferson and Harding. This one's a mixed use, so it's residential and commercial. 50 units, 62 feet high, 5 stories, and 3 commercial segments over 1,000 square feet, so about 3,700 square feet of commercial space. And so, again, like with every other project in the village, the residents, the concerns are kind of the same, the height, the number of units, and then parking. There's 51 parking units. So, and 4 of those are dedicated to the commercial spaces. So about 47 then for the tenants. And so, people are concerned or voicing their frustration with where all this parking is going to happen. And the parking was scaled down because of AB 2097. So that's a state law that basically eliminates any parking requirements within a half mile of a major transit station. So you got the Carlsbad Village transit station right there. So the project didn't have to have parking. The whole point for that bill or that law was to get people out of their cars, right? And that people are going to walk around, they're going to bike. That's just not the reality. You talk to any developer, they will not be able to sell a project, rent a project if you don't have parking. So they have the 51 spaces, but that's just one space per unit. So, it's going to be street parking for a lot. There will be some amenities, decks for the units, a shared deck on the 5th floor, some sidewalk improvements, and the developers are kind of excited about adding 3 new commercial spaces. And so that project is still working its way through, planning and all that. And so it's not expected to hit Planning Commission until maybe July or later in the late summer, early fall, and then city council maybe in October or late fall, early winter. But like the Carlsbad Village Plaza project and others, there's really no way to kind of fight back, just how state laws are written. And that dovetails into the next one that I talked about. This one was more on social media, but the Quail Meadows project is coming before the Encinitas City Council on Wednesday. And so that's a massive project, 448 units, subterranean garage. And that will be just north or on the northeast corner of Encinitas Boulevard and Quail Gardens Drive, excuse me. And with that, you have the Quail Meadows, and then you have Sunshine Gardens, the residential component being built there, which is 140 or some units there, and then right across the intersection on Quail Garden on the south or the northwest side, excuse me, is proposed for Moonlight Apartments. So in total, 790 units are expected to go into that small area. Residents are pretty up in arms about that one, of course. Quail Gardens, with traffic, um, it's 2 lanes, so 1 lane each direction. Encinitas Boulevard, a lot of people say that's already a mess. Adding 790 units, which is likely to bring a minimum of 1,000 people, so maybe 1,000 cars as well. Just going to jam up those areas. And then there is an appeal going down from a couple sources, and one of them is citing that the project should not be exempt from CEQA because the subterranean parking and the project are in a riparian area. And then the parking garage would be in line with a historical stream. And so about, 5 years ago almost, that area had significant flooding. So where Sunshine Gardens, where the commercial component is, there's Cup of Juice and some of those other business there. And there was 5.5 feet of floodwaters for Cup of Juice, and they almost, lost their business from that flood. So we'll see if the city's, it doesn't look like the city's really addressed any drainage issues with over there. So we'll see how this project, goes forward. Councilwoman Joy Lenz, she'll have to recuse herself as she works for IDS Group, which is an architectural landscape company that's working on the project. She's a designer on the project. And so a resident just sniffed that out the other day. But one of the big things too with this project, I'm going to go to the notes here, is that in 2021, the previous city council adopted its sixth cycle housing element for the regional housing needs assessments arena. It's something that every city and county has to do to report to the state how many units are zoned, new residential units are zoned in your city, and you have to meet certain targets, right? So city X might have to be 3,000 planned or new units coming online as a way to address the housing crisis. And as part of that housing element or housing cycle includes the housing element. So Encinitas updated its housing element as well, and so they looked at different pieces of land and okay, talk to the landowners. Do you want to be zoned for housing? Yeah, we could do that too. And so then that's where they kind of get the new lots from. However, during the housing element update, the city made some amendments to the local coastal program and municipal code, and those amendments adopted a by right zoning applicable to Quail Meadows site and exempted the project from CEQA. So it's usually pretty difficult to get an exemption from CEQA unless you're close to a transit station, which this project is not. So, residents are questioning that as well. They're hoping that the city council will vote no on it and on Wednesday, but that's always a very challenging thing to do, to try to overturn these projects. They're very difficult because of how state law is written, and the way to do that is there has to be a very defined and specific threat to public health and safety. And usually almost no projects ever meet that standard. We'll see, since this is in a, where the riparian areas, there's flooding concerns, with the wildfire threats now, that whole area right there could, maybe qualify it, but we'll see where the council goes. It'll be, four council members with Lenz being recused, and we'll see if this is where the fight begins for Encinitas to push back against these state housing mandates. So that's one to keep an eye on for sure. And just to kind of pivot off of both of those development projects, there's a lot of state laws, and so when I do my reporting, I try to include all those, or as many as possible. So Senate Bill 330 is one of the big ones that prevents cities and counties from denying projects for the most part, especially if they have an affordable housing component. So both of the Carlsbad and Encinitas ones do. Encinitas is going to have 90 units, Carlsbad 8 units. And so it's just a way to kind of really jam through housing developments without pushback from a planning commission or a city council, and projects being denied for whatever the reason may be. And so that's what we see a lot in residents, complaining to their city councils. Well, the city councils are really kind of mostly, for the most part, they're handcuffed when it comes to the housing developments and projects, and it's by state law. And so the state law was written by the supermajority in Sacramento, at the legislators. So it's easy. The trend I see is it's easy to target a city council because it's tangible, right? It's in your community. You can go to city hall. No one's going to Sacramento. They're not going to go, look at their state assembly person or state senator and go to their office. But that's really where the residents need to, push back hard, is with those state legislators saying, we want to have control over how our city looks. So that's kind of it for this week. Today's Super Bowl Sunday, so enjoy the day. Be safe out there, or if you're not watching the game, enjoy the kind of a relaxed atmosphere. So take care, and we'll see you guys next week.